Let's talk about drawing eyes. Get them right and they'll bring your portrait to life, but get them wrong and no matter how accurate the rest of the drawing is, the final piece just won't look right. In this video, I'll take you through how I drew these eyes. I'll go through the steps I took to shape the eyeball, to blend the iris and the pupil, to capture the catch light, and to capture the reflection on the edge of the lens of the eye. I'm drawing kangaroo eyes, but the principles are pretty much the same for most animal eyes. The video which you're about to see is the first part of a full step-by-step tutorial which you can find over in the art membership on my website and also over on Patreon. If you want to follow along with the tutorial and draw the eyes with me, I've put a link in the description to the line drawing, the reference photograph, and the list of supplies that we used in the video. I've included the full kangaroo's head in the line drawing, and if you want to go on and finish the kangaroo afterwards in your own time, you're obviously welcome to do that. So really hope that you enjoy the video, and let's get started. I'm going to start with the eyes. So I'm going to use a dark sepia pencil, dark sepia polychromos pencil, and I'm just going to go around these eyes, and I'll probably work on them both together actually. We'll just work on both together. So I'm just going to go around the outside, just going to go around the outside of the eye. Always starting with the outside of the eye, and to be honest, I always start with this bit that's going over the top as well. I don't know, it just seems the most natural curve to start with, I think. Come over the top, just little light dashes. I'm also going to come around the outside around here. This is the bottom part of the eye. Let's just have a look at that. Let's come around the outside around there. We've got all these lovely eyelashes coming over this bit. Also going to come down into here, just using little dashes just to bring this side of the eye down here. Let's just have a look at this. Comes down this way, and then starts to come around here as well. Just shape this really, really gently. Bring that around there. Just get a little bit of shape in there. And then we've got this little bit of the eye that comes down here as well. So I'm just going to use little dashes to just plot this in. We've also got, we've got a lovely sort of darker line around here. Plot those in. And bring this all the way around the bottom. So I'm using the guide, I'm using the line drawing as the guide, but I'm also looking at this reference photograph. Every couple of seconds I'm looking at this reference photograph just to make sure that I'm roughly in the right place. We've got quite a dark bit that's coming around here, quite a dark line. So I'm bringing this line around. And we've got another little line, which is like the water line, isn't it? Little water line just coming in there. And that also comes into the bottom, joins up on the bottom. Roughly like that. And then that's created the little water line. And then this little line here is just ever so slightly broken up. It's there, but I just want to sort of dot in that way a little bit, just to break that line up. Just didn't want that to be a really sort of big line in there. And then we've got, let's just have a look at this. We've got this bit that's just going to come over here, and I'm just going to start to plot this in as well. Comes around here, and it comes all the way around. Let's just bring that line down there on the bottom of the eye, and then this bit comes around here. Just very gently, just sort of plotting that in. And then we've got this dark bit that comes over here. I'm just going to plot up. This is the top of the upper eyelid. It's just that crease in that upper eyelid. And that's quite dark in there, isn't it? So I'm just going to make that quite dark in there. Works over the top of this lovely catch light. Really quite dark, but we can go in and put that in afterwards. I just want to get the sort of the, you know, the guides in. Just start to plot it in. That comes around there as well. It is really worth taking your time with plotting in eyes, because if you get the eye wrong, it won't matter, or I don't think it matters then how much good work I do elsewhere. If I've got the eye wrong, you know, it's really going to just bug me. It's going to show through. It's not going to make it look that sort of realistic. So I want to make sure that I've got this eye plotted in as well as I can from the outset. If I need to tweak it, that's fine. But I want to at least get it somewhere, you know, in the right sort of position, and start to get these bits, these guides and these bits sketched in. So we're going to have quite a dark bit coming down there. So I've got pretty much that outline of that eye plotted in. I'm going to go and do the same over this side. So again, I'm just going to work over the top of the eye to start with. I always sort of make that mark first. You don't have to. It's just works for me. It just seems like a very easy mark. That little curve is such an easy mark to make on the paper. So it's just a curve that's easy, and you see it's got a line down on the paper now. So it's just broken into that nice new paper, or drafting film in this case. And then we've got this little bit down here. Now I've got, let's just have a look at this. So we've got a bit that comes around there. This is the lovely little curve that's coming around the bottom of the lower eyelid. And then it's coming all the way up to here. And then we've got this lovely bit that's coming around here. And that again is another bit, starts to come out this way. So I'm just using little directional strokes to start to put the suggestion of the fur direction in. And I find that quite helpful to put the suggestion of the fur direction, because already I know now that that line doesn't actually belong to the eye. It belongs to the lower eyelid. So I find it useful to plot things in like that. And that just reminds me now that that's the lower eyelid and it's not actually the eye. I find that's really quite useful, especially when I'm talking and I'm not paying attention. I don't always pay attention when I'm talking, and I should do. So that's just, you know, a helpful little guide that I'll know that that's not part of the eye. Let me just feather this around here a little bit. That's going to go quite dark up there. I'm just going to sort of sketch it in with a few lines. It's obviously going to go darker and we can sort that out. I'm just going to sketch it in with a few lines. And then we've got this line that just comes around here. This is the inner part of the upper eyelid. So we've got that that's coming around here. And then we've just got this tiny little, and again, this isn't on my drawing, but to be honest, I'm not sure that I did. Yeah, I did put a little mark on that on the line drawing. I just haven't copied it over. But I've just got a tiny, almost like a little curved triangle there, just a little scribble. And that just gives me that tiny little bit in the corner of the eye that just suggests that that eye leads into the nose. You know, you've got this little extra bit in the corner of an eye, and that just leads in to the nose there. So that's quite a useful little bit. And then that is probably all I want to do on this one, again for the outline for the minute. I think that's, yeah, I think that's pretty much there for the outline for the minute. What I will do is I'll just come along the side. Now I'm sort of using the pencil on its side. It is quite a sharp pencil because I've just used it. I just wanted a sharp pencil to do the outline. But when I want to, if I just go to a piece of, this is just a clean piece of drafting film. When I want to draw or create a nice even surface, if I just show you here, I'm going to get a nice even surface by not pressing on hard. Obviously we never press on hard, but also I don't know if you can see that. If where can I put that? If you let me just turn it, can you see that there? I've got that lovely little flat edge on the end. So even though that pencil's really sharp, it's got this lovely flat edge on the end. That's what's giving me that lovely soft sort of even coverage. If I turn it around, let me just show you, if I turn it around so that I'm using the real point of it, I'm not going to be able to get, I mean, it's not that bad actually, but you can see that it's not as even as that. You can see more pencil lines in there. That's when I turned it around and used the point. So I want to use either, to get an even surface, I either want to use a pencil that isn't that sharp, and by that I mean perhaps something like this, got a nice rounded edge, or if it is sharp, I want to use like the nice little flat bit that's created on the edge of it. That's what's going to give me a lovely even surface rather than seeing lots of pencil lines in there. Hopefully that makes sense. Just bring that tiny little bit of depth in there. I was working under here, wasn't I? I've just realised I was working under here. Okay, so I'm going to just very, very gently bring a little bit of this dark sepia along the side. So this is the highlight, the little catch light, and really, really gently I'm just going to work under the side of this, and I'm going to put this darker bit in here. Now because this is drafting film, you can't get anywhere near as many layers in this drafting film as you could if you were using watercolour paper, pastel matte, Bristol wood, and anything like that. You can't get as many layers in. So it's much easier to start with either the darks or the mid-tones and then lighten it afterwards than trying to sort of, if we were working on a Fabriano Artistico, for instance, for this, I would probably, we've got a tiny little bit of a beautiful sort of brown ochre, almost like a brown ochre 10% colour in the corner. I would probably put that along with the warm grey one all the way over that eye to create a nice base layer and work from light to dark. But I just haven't got enough layers. There isn't enough tooth in the drafting film to be able to put that amount of layers in. So I'm going to start to find the darker bits first. So you can see I'm putting the darker bit in, and then I'll blend it with the lighter colour when we come to use the brown ochre 10%, and it will work really, really nicely. That's the beauty of the drafting film. It will work really, really nicely to work that way round. And to be honest, if we tried to work the other way round, we'd run out of tooth to get the layers in. So I'm just putting a little bit of this dark sepia there, and I'm going to do exactly the same on this side. So I'm working around this lovely catch light that we've got on this side. I'm using that flatter edge or the blunter edge of the pencil, and I'm just bringing that around and just gently bringing this down into the pupil area. I can see a little bit more of the pupil on this side. I can see a little bit there as well, but it's just a bit more pronounced on this side. So I'm just going to run this down. It is quite dark, it's quite a dark eye. Just going to run that down there just for the minute. So we've got a little bit of this a little bit of the pupil, bit of the darker bit of the pupil. There's a beautiful little broken bit in that catch light. And I can always go back and just sort of tidy that up. The next thing I want to do is to bring some of the lovely brown colour of these eyes through. This is the burnt umber, and I'm going to come in with the burnt umber. And again, it's quite a sharp pencil, but it's got a nice sort of used rounded end on it. Really, really light pressure. I'm going to come over the dark sepia that we've already put in. It doesn't matter whether I use circular strokes or whether I use little directional strokes, whatever is more comfortable for you. And remember, all these pencil lines that we're seeing, they're all on the back. We will erase those. They're not, we don't have to worry about those unless we really don't like the look of them, and then we can just turn it over and erase them. So I've just got some lovely burnt ochre in this space, and also so I'm just going to bring it down to about there. I'm going to make this ever so slightly lighter on the bottom, but I'm going to bring it over this side as well. Again, I can go over the top of that dark sepia and just make it a little bit richer. Just going to use circular strokes, really, really light pressure, hardly anything. And for a surface that has hardly any tooth to it, it really does grab hold of that pencil. It's lovely. Just going to put a little bit around here. Darken that down. You only have to touch that surface with the pencil and it takes that pigment off. It's really lovely. I'm going to bring a little bit of the bistre into here as well. So I'm going to work over this burnt umber and bring this down to the bottom, just using little circular strokes. A little bit of bistre around here, bringing it down to the bottom, but I'm just going to leave that tiny little bit there because I am going to put the brown ochre 10% in there. And I'm going to use it on this side as well. It's not quite so light on this side, but I will use it on this side. And just bring this colour in around there. I'm going to put a little bit of the bistre around there. It's a little bit more grey. The colour's a little bit more grey, but I'm going to put a little bit of the bistre in to start with, and then I might add a bit of grey afterwards. We'll just see where we get to. But we've got this lovely colour coming into this eye now. Let me just go into this bit down here. This is the brown ochre 10%. And let me just work into the side of this eye, little circular strokes, and just blend the side of that eye there. Really, really delicate, but it really just starts to create this lovely roundness of the eye. What I want to do is I want to darken these pupils down a little bit. I'm going to use a little bit of the dark indigo, and this is the dark indigo from the Polychromos, and I'm going to bring it into this pupil over here, just darken down along and under that catch light, just to really darken down. The pupil and this eye. I'm just going to drag it down into the brown area a little bit more. This eye is definitely a lot darker. So I'm just going to drag that around, and I'm also going to just drag it around that tiny little line. It's just coming around there. It's just the suggestion of the edge of the eyeball. Bringing that around. And then that little bit on the edge that I just said I was going to put a bit of bistre in, but I said it looked a little bit more grey, but I was going to use a bit of bistre. That's the lens on the outside. That's just the reflection on the lens on the outside of the eye. But I'm going to just use a tiny bit of the dark indigo to just darken that down just a fraction. Just bring that around there. And I'm going to do the same on this side as well. So I'm going to work under the the catch light. Go up into that catch light. We've got some lovely shape in that catch light. And also I'm going to just drag this blue, although I don't want it to look blue, it's mixing with the brown that's in there and creating a lovely dark, really rich, dark brown, almost like a black colour really. But I am just going to very, very gently bring a little bit of that around and over onto this eye. It's really, really subtle, really gentle. Just bring that around there, and then just to blend that again, I'm just going to go back with the Bista. Take that Bista back through that space. Make sure it's nice and blended. I'm going to bring a tiny little bit of the burnt sienna as well, just to make that quite rich on the bottom. It's really tiny. I don't really want much of it to come onto the paper. I don't want to transfer much of that pigment onto the paper, that colour. I just want to make it quite nice and rich, what's there. So I'm just bringing that through, and I'm just going to blend this again because I want this to be nice and blended on the side. So I'm just going to soften that edge. At the minute, I've just got quite a harsh edge on the edge of that highlight. So I'm just using the brown ochre to just sort of feed that colour out into the eye. And you can see it's just softened that edge. I didn't want a harsh edge on that little reflection there. I'm just going to just run that down the edge there as well. And those two colours have given me something that looks a little bit grey anyway, even though it was the Bista and the brown ochre rather than the grey. It's given me quite a grey sort of colour. But with just a little bit more of just a little bit more interest, whereas a grey might have just been a little bit dull. But you know, if all you had was like a warm grey 2 or something, you could put that down there. That would be fine. Okay, so we've got the sort of the bottom of the eyes in. I will go in and with a little bit of black and just sort of darken those up. But I just want to work on these lovely highlights a little bit first. I'm going to go in with the ultramarine. I'm going to work with the ultramarine and put a little bit of a highlight or a little bit of blue in this highlight. We can see obviously a lot of sky reflecting in this highlight. I've put a little bit there, and I'm going to bring a bit over this side as well. Let's just bring this over again. I'm not pressing on hard. Where I'm putting this highlight in, where I'm putting this blue in, sorry, I'm keeping the pencil strokes very gently curved. These pencil strokes are coming in, and I'm not just sort of scribbling down. If anything, I could use circular strokes if I didn't want to put any directions in. But to be honest, I can see that direction there, so I'm going to use the curved strokes. But I definitely don't just want to come down, because if I come down, I'm just going to flatten out the eye. And what I want to keep is the shape of this eye, this curved shape of this eye. Same here as well, just a tiny little bit. That's all that's in there. And then this is the warm grey 3, and just along the bottom of this catchlight here, I'm going to use this warm grey 3. My pencil sort of starting in the dark bit and very gently moving out, flicking out towards the lighter catchlight. I'm also going to put a little bit of this warm grey 3 into that corner, because that corner isn't as light as we had it. So I'm just blending this out just a little bit, and I'm going to do the same on this side. I'm going to blend the edge of this catchlight up here. Again, I'm starting on the darker bit and just very gently letting that drag up into the catchlight. I'm also just softly blending that that blue, and the same on this. I'm just really, really gently just blending it a little bit. Okay, so we've got some of the blue in there. This is a black pencil, This is the black polychromos, and I want to start to think about darkening bits down now. So we've got quite a dark bit under this catch light here. Let's just come under the bottom of it again. Let's just work the pencil along the bottom and up into the catch light where we've got these extra bits of shadows that are coming up. And it goes quite dark around here, doesn't it? Darken that down. And then I just want to very gently, so this bit of shadow that I've put under the catch light, I just want to soften it. I just want to soften that edge. I also want to bring a nice dark edge around the side of this lovely white bit on the edge there. So I'm just going to bring that around. Soften it, break it up with a tiny little circular line. And then over the top, so we've got this little bit here. This is quite dark over the top. This is where the eyelashes are coming from. I've got this little bit over the top, so I'm making it darker, but then I'm just going to drag it out. So again, when I drag things into the eye, I'm dragging it in the direction the eye's going. So I'm just working on this tiny little bit across the top, and I'm just dragging it in to soften the edge, but I'm dragging it on that curve again. So I'm thinking about that curve of that eyeball, and I'm bringing this around. So this line goes up. That's quite a sort of distinctive line there. This is where the eyelashes are coming out from. Now I don't want to put black everywhere here because I don't want these eyelashes to get too heavy. I want to go in and I want to sort of tint them with other things. Perhaps a bit of brown or something, a bit of grey. I can see brown in there. I can see a bit of grey in there. So I just want to break up these eyelashes a little bit, but I certainly don't want to fill the whole area in with the black. It just sort of joins up here a little bit, doesn't it? Polychromos is quite good for this because it's a nice sort of, well, it keeps a nice point for a start, but it's also a nice translucent pencil. So I just want to break through this space a little bit, break through that. I've got some more colour to put in there. Got this bit that comes around here. That might just do for the minute. I will blend what I've put and then I might need to sort of go back in again. But for the minute, that might actually just do. I definitely don't want to sort of, put too much of the black in. Let's just pull that little bit out for that pupil there. That'll do for the minute with the eye. I've definitely got to go back and do the upper eyelid. But let's work over this side as well. So again, let's have a look. We've got the darker bit that we put in with the dark sepia, and I don't want to make that too black down there. But I just want to just have a think about these bits on top. So we've got this darker bit, and again, it needs to just be pulled in to the eye here. We've got this, just like we had this sort of, it's the bottom line of the upper eyelid, and we've got the bottom line of the upper eyelid here. And again, it's just going to very, very gently, it's not a really solid line. It's a line that is quite broken, and the eyelashes come out from it, and so does the shadow. So I want to be really, really mindful of the direction that this line comes out into the eye at, because that's going to help keep the lovely domed effect of this eye. So I'm just breaking up this upper part of the eye. It's actually the lower line of the upper eyelid, if that makes sense. Just going to darken down in the middle there. That's quite dark around there. Just bring that around. And I'm just using tiny, tiny little marks because obviously it's not that big. And I'm also using really, really light pressure. And if you use really light pressure, it's really quite easy to just erase this out if you make a mistake. That's the lovely thing with the drafting film, that it's really quite easy to just correct it, just using that light pressure. That is probably all I'm going to do on that side for the minute. I am just going to go back in onto here and just darken that down. Darken this black down. Just make sure that that's a nice dark bit there where that pupil comes under that eye. So we've got a little bit there as well. I just want to go back to the dark sepia because I just want to break into this lovely white bit that we've got here. I just want to break the edge of that up a little bit more, and it is a tiny, you can see there were just a tiny couple of marks that went into that, but it's just broken up that edge just a little bit more, and I'm just a bit happy with it. Just on the bottom, whilst I've got the dark sepia, I can see that along the bottom of this line there is a slightly heavier just like it's almost like an extra little bit of depth there, and it's helping, and it's there on, I was going to say all eyes, but certainly most eyes. I can't ever think of an eye where you don't really see this on the bottom. So what I tend to do is I just very gently, and it's not just on this kangaroo, I'll do this on all eyes, really gently just sort of break up using little circular strokes, and I'm just running these little circular strokes with really light pressure along the edge of that eye, and it just creates that extra little bit of depth, and that helps to really make that that eyeball look domed, because you're just putting the darker bit on the bottom and it makes it look like we've actually got that sort of sphere in the eye, that eyeball shape, especially when you've got a highlight as well, when you've got that little highlight to just catch. So the highlight would sort of be on a raised part of the eye, and then you've got this darker bit where you've got sort of the lower part of the eyeball, if that makes sense. And I'm going to do the same on this side. Just going to run this around here. Now, as I've just looked at this colour, I've looked at this here and I've looked at that bit there, and I've thought actually I could have done that with the Payne's grey. It's just ever so slightly more blue. I may go in and put a little bit of Payne's grey in. It was a tiny little bit. I'm not too worried about it. But to be honest, as I look at it, I could have used Payne's grey there, and I could have used a bit of Payne's grey around here, but it's only a tiny little bit. I'm not that worried about it. And then what I'm going to do is, I want a nice sort of thick, opaque white now. And this is the Pablo, which is one of my favourite white pencils for putting extra bits of detail in like this over the top of other colours. And I'm just going to bring the Pablo through this highlight, and you can see I've just broken it up a little bit, just broken up that bottom, and also I'm just going to dot it down here as well. I'm not looking to make it white, just looking to break up the colour that was there. Same with this on this side, just a very tiny little bit of white, just to break up this highlight a little bit. Run it up into the blue. I'm going to take this all the way along. I'm not looking to make an area white. I'm just looking to sort of desaturate and lighten the colour that's underneath. You don't always have to use white to create white. It can be used to just desaturate the colours that are underneath. So I've just put that little bit in the corner there, and I'm just going to run this white tiny little mark around there, just bringing that around, but then so it's at the top of this curve, so it comes around and then it makes it look like this curve is the bottom part of the eyelid, where it's just sagging a little bit as it comes around the eye. So it just needed a tiny little mark to just bring that eyeball around. And I think that for the minute, I think I'm quite happy with those. I think I'm quite happy with those eyeballs. We'll see how it goes when we actually put some other colour around it, but I think they're okay. I think we're quite happy with those. Okay, so we've got the eyes in. We've got the actual eyeballs in. Let me just take off those little crumbs. And the next thing I want to do now is to start to bring some of the fur around the eyes. Now I'm going to go in with a Warm Earth 40%. What I want to do is I want to go in with a colour that is sort of like a mid-tone colour. So on the drafting film, I'm sort of going to go in with a mid-tone colour. If I go in with the mid-tone colour, then I can darken down bits that I need to darken down, and obviously lighten bits that I need to lighten, or just leave the areas that, you know, I know are going to be really quite light, or obviously, you know, remove it. That's what I'm going to do. So this is the Warm Earth 40%. And what I want to do is just take a little bit of this Warm Earth around the edge of this eye. I'm going to bring it into this eyelash as well, actually, into these eyelashes. I've got a nice, soft, used end on the pencil. It's not a really, it is a sharp pencil, but it's got that little soft bit that I was talking about, that little flat bit. And I'm just going to a little bit of this pigment over this way. Bring this around. I'm going to bring it up here as well, actually. Bring a little bit of it up here. Remember, all these pencil lines, they're all underneath, so I can just ignore them until I'm ready to erase them. I'm just going to bring some of these pencil lines around here. And bring some of this pigment around here, and I want it to obviously curve around the shape of the eye. Bring that around really gently. This bit that's around here is actually quite a bit lighter, so I'm going to use the brown ochre 50% to start with. I'm just going to bring a little bit of the brown ochre 50% and start to feather this off over this way. And then I'm actually going to move to the brown ochre 10% and bring a little bit of this brown ochre 10% over this way. You don't want to press on hard, just want to keep these pencil strokes coming over this way. Very gently bring that over. Take it up here as well. And I just want that nice even coverage. So I don't want a pencil that's too sharp, and I don't want to press on too hard. And that way I can just get this lovely even coverage. I want to bring a little bit of it's like a brown, but it's like a lovely sort of reddy brown colour, and I'm going to use the sepia. This is the sepia from the Pablo, and I'm going to bring a little bit of the sepia into this upper eyelid here for a start. I'm just going to work this pigment over this way. I really like this sepia from the Pablo. It's just a lovely, soft, gentle, reddish brown colour. So I'm just going to bring a little bit of this. I haven't got a sharp end. It's got a nice sort of rounded used end on it. And I'm just going to bring this off this way for a start and just create a little bit of depth to this crease that's the top of this eyelid. Bring this over this way just a little bit. Really, really light pressure. Just bring that around. I don't want to make these eyelashes too heavy and make this crease too heavy. I am going to just put a little bit into this eyelid. This eyelid isn't actually that light. And I'm just shaping these, shaping the side of that eye around there. I'm also just going to bring this, bring it around here a bit as well. Just sort of feathers out really gently on the side of this eye here. It's going to go a bit darker there, but I'm just going to start that feathering process off with this sepia. Just bring that around there just a little bit. I'm going to use a bit of the walnut brown in this space as well. So I'm going to bring a little bit of the walnut brown into this area. And this is where I start to, for me, I don't really like having the lines underneath, because that's making, that pencil line there is actually making that line darker than I know it actually is, because obviously I'm not putting it on that dark. But the pencil line's showing through, and that's where I like to sort of take the pencil lines away. And that's why I like to have the line drawing on the back so that I can erase it. It just works better for me. I like to sort of get rid of my lines. Just going to bring a bit of this walnut into the top of this eyelash here. Top of these eyelashes, top of this eye. Bring that down there. Bring a little bit over into that eye as well. I'm just going to come back to this warm earth 40%, and I'm just going to bring a little bit of this warm earth 40% down the side of this eye around here, just before I start to make it a little bit darker. Bring a bit of this warm earth 40% down the side around here. And also, I think I'll just bring it around here as well, actually. Bring this down. I'm going to take a little bit of this warm earth into these eyelashes, into the side of this eye here. Just take that in there. And just bring this all the way around under the side, under the bottom of this eye. Bring this around. I just want a nice even coverage. Can't really see much direction in this little bit, so I just want a nice even coverage. That's what I'm looking for. Just under this eye around here, this is the Delft blue, and I'm going to just, almost like little spots, little dashes, there's just a tiny little bit of a blue, sort of purple grey around here. So I'm just putting a tiny little bit of this Delft blue in, and you can see it is a tiny little bit. I don't want there to be some really harsh purple in there. Just want a tiny little bit of that. And then I'm going to take, this is the Coal Grey 2, and I'm just going to blend it with the Coal Grey 2 and just let it come over the edge of this eye. Just a little bit there. It's really tiny. It's a tiny amount of pigment in there. And then this is the Coal Grey 5. And I'm going to bring this Coal Grey 5 around the side of this eye. So just going to bring this down here for the minute. Let this curve over a little bit. Bring this around. I'm going to put some brown back in here, but I just want to put a little bit of this cold grey in first. Just curving this over the bottom of the eyelid and the bottom of the eye socket. And just bringing that round. Tiny little curve, so it's curving that way, and then as we get to this side, it's going to curve around this side. Curve that there a little bit, and then I'm going to go back to the dark sepia. And I'm going to bring the dark sepia. First of all, I'm going to bring it over the edge of this eye. So this is like the waterline that we've got in here, and the inside edge of the lower eyelid. That's the line that I'm then just going to just very gently curve out and away from. Take that round there a little bit, as curve out and away from. Come back round here. We've got this lovely little bit in the middle. I am going to use a slightly sharper side of the pencil just to make sure I've got that lovely little, you might not be able to see it, it's just a tiny little line in there. And then let's come back to this dark sepia. That's going to go really quite sort of dark in there. I'm just going to use little circular strokes in there. Bring that into the corner of that eye. Bring that in. I'm just looking to see where it ends on the eye. It sort of ends in there. And then this bit comes around there. So again, I've gone back to just tipping it over into the slightly sharper point of the pencil, just to get that nice sharp line in there. And then curving this around. And just curving it off the edge. And it's tiny little strokes, but it is going to make the edge of that eye look better, because I don't want a really solid line there. I want something that looks like it's probably quite hard to try and explain because it's such a tiny line, but the actual line itself, rather than it just being a solid line, the actual line is made up of lots of little curves. It's probably the best way to describe it. Lots of little curves, and that's going to give the impression of the lower eyelid sort of curving out into the rest of the face. That's what I want. Bring that around. Don't want to press on hard. Going to make that a bit darker under there, because that does go darker underneath that eyelid, those eyelashes there. That goes a bit darker. Goes darker around there. So we've started to build up the depth. I'll probably blend that a little bit more as I come to put the rest of the eye in under here, but at least now I know I've got this tiny little curve on there. The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to take, this is the cold grey 5. I said that I could see a little bit of sort of like a cold grey around there, so I'm just going to pop that in. I said I could use the Payne's grey, couldn't I? But I'm just going to pop a little bit of the cold grey 5. I'm just going to work back into this bit. This is the warm grey 3 again, and that's not that light in there. So I'm just going to bring a little bit of the warm grey 3 into that space. And then this is the brownish beige. And I'm going to blend this brownish beige out and away from this eye. Let's take it up into this lovely dark bit that's up here. I'm using little strokes that represent the fur, so little directional strokes that represent the fur. I'm just going to sharpen that a little bit. That's just a little bit too blunt. It's okay for doing sort of like big areas, but I want to just get a little bit of detail in here. So I'm just going to blend the side of this eye off. Now the side of this eye, we've got a little curve there. That's actually a little curve. So as I blend this, I'm going to curve this around with circular stroke, little curve strokes, and then bring it over this way. And then that line, I can just erase it out. Let's just bring a little bit of fur texture into this space. And I'm going to bring this around under the eye again. And very gently just drag out what we've started to put in under this eye. Now I'm going to have to make that a little bit darker, but I can still just drag it out in the meantime. Bring this down here. I want to come back in with a cold grey, and I'm going to come in with a cold grey 6. And just make sure I don't lose the bottom of this lovely dark bit on this eye socket. Just bring that around. Make sure that's nice and dark. And I just want to add it in quite gently because it is quite a gentle, subtle area. I don't want to, you know, make things too dark too quickly. So we've just got that little bit of the bottom of the eye socket now, the bottom of the lower eyelid, and then that's starting to come off into the rest of the portrait. Let's just go back up to this bit up here. Let's back to this brownish beige. And let's go back to adding some depth up here. I'm going to bring this colour over a little bit, blend out what's on the edge of this eyebrow, blend that. And then I'm going to come back to this Warm Earth 40% again and just take it just a little bit further and out into this brown ochre. I want it to be really subtle. Take that over there. Okay, so we've got a nice little bit of texture that's starting to form around this this kangaroo's eyes. Let's come over and put a little bit on this side, and then we'll start to move out from there. So let's do exactly the same again. So what I want to do first of all is to just put some of this this colour, this Warm Earth 40%, into the area around this eye, sort of starting in the middle again with the mid-tones. I don't want to start really light. I could start dark, so I mean, for instance, around here, you know, it is quite dark. I could go under there where I know it's going to go quite dark, but I've already got this colour in my hand, so I'm just going to use this colour. I could start darker if I wanted to. It just doesn't really, there isn't enough room for us to start really light and then go all the way down through the value scale like there would be if we were on watercolour paper or something. There just isn't that, you know, there isn't that amount of space for pigment to go down. There isn't that much tooth. So it's just easier to sort of start somewhere in the middle, obviously where things are lighter. So for instance, here again, I know this is going to go lighter. I'm not worried about this edge here. This is going to go lighter. So I can just go straight in with the brown ochre, 10%. You can get some layers down. Don't think, you know, I wouldn't want you to think you can't get any layers down, but you just can't get enough. There just isn't, enough tooth to hold as many layers as your pastel mat or as your watercolour paper would. So okay, so I'm bringing a little bit of this brown ochre over there to just sort of blend that. Okay, so I'm just going to bring a little bit of the beige into this section on the edge, right over the edge here. Just let this sort of feather over a little bit. I'm just going to bring this into this bit, into these eyelashes around here, and also just very gently start to bring this down around this way, and you can see what sort of light pressure and how wispy it is on the end. There's hardly anything going down, but it is a lovely surface to work on. I'm going to come back to this brownish beige, and I'm going to start to think about a little bit more of this colour around here. So we've got this crease, this upper crease again, or this crease of the upper eyelid. So that's going to be a little bit darker in there. I'm going to bring this colour around. I'm just sort of using backwards and forwards curved strokes just to get the curve coming around. But you can easily sort of tip your paper and turn your paper if that's what you want to do. And just cover that over because I'm just going to start to work this way. Work that over that way just a little bit. It's going to go a little bit darker up there. And I just want to bring this texture with this Pablo through the top of this eye just a little bit. It's quite light, but it has still got a little bit of texture in there. So I don't want it to be just one solid colour. Let's bring that around there. Still, it's got a little bit of colour in there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this colour down under here as well. So we're going to come into these eyelashes a little bit. I'll make those a little bit darker in there. In fact, let's come in with the darker colour. Let's start to darken this down. So this is the sepia again, just like before. We want that dark, lovely sort of sepia colour coming through these lovely eyelashes. Let's just start to shape these around. That goes a little bit darker there, doesn't it? Goes a bit darker there. And then backwards and forwards strokes, really gently. Putting the edge of that crease, edge of those eyelashes in again. This is darker here as well. Let's darken this up right on the corner, the top corner of this eyelash, and then it starts to come over this way. It's got this lovely bit of curve there as it goes over that eyelid. Let's darken that bit down. There's a nice crease there, and it comes a bit darker around here as well. So I'm just going to darken that down. I really don't want to press on hard. It's going to be a much better result if I can just keep this really, really soft. Let's bring this sepia into here a little bit. Let's just shape this little curve that we've got in the corner there. Let's just bring this around. Got quite a nice little curve there. And again, I just want to create this at the bottom part of the eyelid, but have it ever so slightly curved. That's all I'm going to do there for the minute, because I've got a bit more sort of colour to put in there before I refine that. Let's go back to this bit. Let's go back to some of these bits up here. Top of this eyelid, just shaping that again. and softly feathering that out. This is quite dark. Top of this eyelid is actually quite dark. Bring some of these eyelashes over. I want to start to think about making this slightly darker again. Now this is the charcoal grey from the Pablo, and it's a really lovely colour. So I'm going to use it to start to think about making this a little bit darker in here. I'm going to feather out the edge of this eye again onto the eyelid, just to diffuse that eyelid a little bit. Feather that out a little bit. It goes quite dark in this corner, so I'm going to darken this corner down a little bit. It goes quite dark in there, doesn't it? Darken that down. Make this line nice and dark underneath. And also then just bring a little bit around the top of this lower eyelid again. Now, just like before, I'm going to go back in with a warm grey 3, and I'm going to darken down that eyelid, that lower eyelid, because it was too light. So I'm just going to darken that down. That's better. That's just darken down that lower eyelid there. I'm going to make it a little bit darker again on this side. So this is the coal grey 5, and I'm going to darken down this eyelid even more on this side. I'm going to leave it slightly light around there, but I'm going to darken down and just diffuse that edge just a little bit more. And with a coal grey 6 again, there's just a tiny extra little, it's just a tiny little dip in that edge there. So I've just put the tiniest little mark there just to create that little bit of a dip in that eye. I'm going to take the burnt umber again, and I'm just going to work it off the bottom of this eye down here, just off the bottom. So I'm just letting the pencil go all over that dark bit, but I just want to darken that iris down. That iris was just a little bit light around there. So I've just darkened that iris down just on that one side. And it's just made that eye just look a little bit better on the bottom. And then I'm back to the sepia. And I'm going to start to just think about a little bit of depth around here for a start. So we've got this bit. It's going to be a little bit dark around here. Again, it's sat over the pencil line. And I'm just going to very gently take this dark sepia and just start to feather and round off the top of this eye around here. So I'm just using backwards and forwards curves and just letting this eye just blend around that way just a little bit. Making sure that we've got these curves going over the top of this eye socket. Just blending that off there. And then I'm going to come back to this warm earth 40% and just blend that out a little bit. Let this work its way over. And we're starting to build up a nice little bit of direction over the top of this eyelid, over the top of this eye socket. Let's just bring that through there just a little bit. I still want to make this a little bit darker up here. This is the sepia 50% from the Luminance. And I just want to use some around this side because this has just got to go ever so slightly darker again. Just on the top up there. And I'm just going to just extend these eyelashes up here just a little bit as well. Bring those eyelashes over. That's a bit better. It just needed to go a little bit darker right up on the top of this eye up here. So that's just a little bit better. Just going to go in with a bit of the dark sepia just to darken that down right on the top of that crease. That's a little bit better there. That's better. Just shape the top of that eye just a little bit. I'm going to use a bit of this sepia from the Pablo in here as well. Darken down that eyelash and that eyelid just a little bit. That's a bit better. There we go. That's made that look better too. I'm going to come around and underneath with this this Warm Earth 40% again. I'm going to bring the pencil strokes down and away from the eye. Bring these down here. I know that I'm not going to need that many layers down here, so I know that I can go in with this lighter colour and then start to build up the darker bits in there, because I know that I'll have plenty of, you know, tooth to do what I want to do in there. Just this little bit, it's not going to go that dark. Just under here I'm going to use a little bit of this Cold Grey 5. And I'm just going to bring a bit of this Cold Grey 5 into this space under the eye around here. Again, I've got that pencil that it's quite sharp, but it's definitely got a used edge, and that is going to help me get that nice even coverage. So I'm going to bring this around. I will put some of the warm colours, the dark sepia over it, but I just want to bring a little bit of this colder grey in first. And just have this come over the cheek a little bit. Just to start to put a little bit of depth into that space. Going to bring a little bit of the brown ochre 10% in here as well. And just sort of blend and darken with this brown ochre 10%. And just on this little bit under here, I'm going to bring a little bit of the raw umber 10% in as well. And just let this blend out away from this brown ochre. There's a little bit of the raw umber through this space. Going to come back to a little bit of this cold grey. Now we've got the cold grey that's coming around here, and also it comes around this way as well, doesn't it? We've got an extra bit of depth of quite a dark colour here, and I'm going to use the cold grey to start with. Bring that around. Nice light pressure. Start to bring that. That's just the bottom of this eye socket again. And then I'm going to start to think about this this sepia from the Pablo again, and start to bring a bit of this darker colour in here. So let's make sure these eyelashes come over as far as we need them to. They're actually really sort of quite long eyelashes, aren't they? Let's just bring those over and feather those around. And then I'm going to bring a little bit of this colour down all the way underneath the bottom of this eye. Really light pressure and tiny little marks. I'm using tiny little marks because of course the fur around here is quite sort of thin, it's quite wispy. Don't want really big sort of heavy bits of fur texture in here. I'm just going to darken that down a little bit. Bring that in there. And also just carry this underneath. Let's go over that bit. So this is the bottom of that eye socket again. Let's just go over that bit. And I'm really just letting the weight of the pencil put the texture into this fur. It's really, really gentle. So I just want it to be nice and subtle when it's finished. Nice and soft. Just breaking through this lighter patch with this tiniest. Now, we always press on light. I always press on lightly, but for this particular bit of fur here, I'm pressing on even lighter, if that's even possible. But it is, because I really am just letting the weight of the pencil put the texture in for me. So I am pressing on a lot lighter than I, would usually. Definitely pressing on lighter than I would usually. I'm going to make this a little bit darker in here. That's a little bit darker there, so I'm just going to put that in, but then I'm going to go back to, I'm going to come in with the dark sepia, and I'm going to make this a bit darker. I said I was going to make this a bit darker in there. So just like we did before, I'm going to put these tiny little curve strokes, almost like quite a flat little C. It's just like that sort of direction. And I'm just going to take that around the outside or along the edge of this outside line on this eye. Let me just redefine that a little bit. That just needs to be redefined there. And what I actually want to do is bring this white along here. And that actually joins up with that eye again there. I just want to break that up. Just a little bit there, just break that up. And then I'm just going to take the burnt umber and just tidy that up on the bottom of that eye. Tidy that up just a little bit. Tidy that up there just a little bit. Use this burnt umber. Use a little bit of this charcoal grey as well, actually. Just pop that in at the bottom. Pop that in at the bottom there. And then I'm back in with this dark sepia. Just curving around. The bottom of this eyelid. And also just darkening down on this side. I'm just going to use a little bit of the brownish beige in this corner and also just in this middle bit here, just to soften down those edges a little bit. Soften that down there. I want to just soften this down as well, this edge, because at the minute that looks quite harsh and it isn't that harsh. So I'm just going to soften that down. Soften that edge down, there we go. And just darken down that tiny little bit in the middle. So you can see, I've put quite a few layers down there. You can see that, there are quite a few layers that this drafting film can take, just not as many as other surfaces would. There's still plenty for what we need. And of course, if we run out of layers, well, we can just sort of remove off some pigment. It's quite easy to do that. But there's plenty there for what we need. It's just that we, don't have enough to put layers down that we don't need. To just waste the layers with all these base layers that we would, find really useful to do if we were working on watercolour paper. I'm just going to bring a little bit, I've just noticed that could go a bit darker there. So once I've got the dark sea in my hand, I've just brought that over that way, just a little bit. And then back to this, beige, brownish beige, sorry. And just bring that into this area just a little bit and just break that up. And there we go. Here are the finished eyes, and this is the finished kangaroo head. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like and hit that subscribe button. That's really helpful and a great way to support the channel. If you want to follow along with the complete kangaroo project or one of the other step-by-step tutorials, you can find those over in the art membership on my website now, and I'll leave a link to that below. Really hope that you've enjoyed this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.